The participants who are joining us right now will wait for a few minutes for others to join in before we begin. Where are all of you joining us from? Just to ask to the panelists.
Sorry?
Where are you all joining us from right now?
Barcelona.
Barcelona, okay.
Yeah, I'm at the office.
Barcelona too.
Barcelona too, okay, nice. Must be lovely weather there.
Yeah.
Me too, Barcelona.
So I'm the only one who is not in Barcelona. I'm from Valencia.
Okay, so we have a few participants here joining us. Thank you very much for taking the time and joining us in this webinar, where we will learn a bit more about venture capital in healthcare. Before we begin this webinar, I would like to point out that if you have any questions, please add them in the chat or in the Q&A section. And I would also like to talk to you about an upcoming event, a visit to Medical Valley in Erlangen, where EIT Health alumni will sponsor 10 participants to go and meet with the people there, meet the incubator, and talk with the people over there and get to know more about the infrastructure and the facilities there. But more about that will come towards at the end of this webinar. So now, as we begin, I would like to give the floor to Pedro to begin. And Pedro, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Krishna. Hello to everybody, and thanks you very much for being here. And also, well, thanks to all the ATHL alumni team, as Joan, Krishna, Bea, Robbie, for help us to create that kind of event. And well, I also want to introduce my team from today, that together with Adrià and Gonzalo, we created that venture capital webinar for you. Adri is a pharmacist. One second. Yeah. Adri is a pharmacist by former and also an former investment analyst who loves venture capital and also technology. Gonzalo, he's an app developer. He has some success launching several mobile apps, and he wild to help people to the knowledge. And myself, I am Pedro. Well, I study biochemistry with a PhD in biomedicine. And a few years ago, I am to my passion today, startup and innovation. Okay, we are here because this is the ATHL Alumni Network. And what is that? If you have participated in a program from ATHL or received ATHL funding, you can be invited by the ATHL alumni and join that network. This is a network that has grown, and nowadays we are more than 2,000 members. We want to reach the local needs of the member with program, and all together we will create a multidisciplinary community of innovators. This webinar series is about venture capital in healthcare. Why we decided to create that? We explained in the other webinar because the venture capital is not so common. Not every people know really well how they work. It's a closed sector. And in healthcare, if you are creating a startup, you will need help and a lot of money. So you need financing, your own financing, but also investment. And venture capital is one of the most important actors if you want investment. For today, the topic for today is exactly in the second webinar. How does a venture capital fund work? Laura, well, we will address this topic and she will share her insight on the structure of financing, some example of business model and the impact of the team, and finally the fund life cycle. But let's Laura explain us. First of all, 1 second to introduce Laura. Laura Rodriguez is, well, he's a biotechnologist in the Universidad Autónoma de Barcelona with a PhD in biotechnology also for the University of Barcelona and with a postgraduate in innovation management. He spent 5 years doing research in gene therapy about the topic cancer, right?
Yeah.
And she worked also in the innovation and technology transfer unit for Valdebrón Hospital. And at the end, he decided to jump and since 2018 work as investment analyst. And since 2020, he's a principal at Invivo Capital Partners, right? Laura, the floor is yours. And well, I with Adri, now they will continue, okay? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Pedro. Thank you, everyone, to be here with us, and Laura especially. So yeah, Pedro, he was talking about your prior experiences and what you did in your past. So just to breaking the ice for this session, we wanted to ask you, why did you decided to start your career in VC? And yeah, what if you can just go through your past experiences and why did you choose this great career? Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And first of all, thank you for inviting me. So Pedro mentioned, I'm a scientist by training. So I studied biotech and I decided to do the PhD. When I was doing my PhD, we had a patent for the technology that I used, and we started collaborating with companies. So I started to understand what was technology transfer. When I finished my PhD, I decided that I didn't want to go through the academic path. I didn't want to do a postdoc. And then I had the opportunity to work at Valdebrón at the innovation office. And it was a great opportunity because there I managed projects from different fields, digital medtech, biotech, in vitro diagnostics. And I helped the projects in the valorization process and trying to look for the technology transfer, meaning either licensing or creating a company. So that's precisely where I understood what venture capital was. And in fact, we presented some of the companies to VCs, to local VCs. And that's where I had the opportunity to understand better what a VC was, right? Mm-hmm. And then I got the opportunity to jump into the VC as an analyst, and I didn't hesitate. I thought it was a great opportunity, and in fact it was. I started back in 2018, first as an analyst. We helped, well, when I entered the first fund, it was Health Equity. We were in fundraising, and we got to close a second fund, Invivo, and then I got to stay there and got promoted recently. So so far so good.
Congrats. Yeah. Thank you so much, Laura, for sharing your insights from the past and why did you decided to break into VC. We had also another question. So imagine that we are a healthcare startup, right? Why should we go for a VC focused in health and not for an agnostic VC that invest in every type of industry? Could you walk through the details about the differences between VC that is focused on health and on the others that are not?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Of course. So on the one hand, I think one of the important things is that the profile of the team in general is scientific. We also have financial people, but mostly scientific. So we will understand what the project is about, and we will understand not only where the project is, but what are the next steps. So thanks to the track record of each fund, they get a lot of experience in drug development or in other issues. So I think it's not only about the money that they can bring to the table, but also the experience in other projects, the ones that have gone good, but also the ones that have gone wrong, right? So science, experience. Of course, we have also, as I mentioned, financial people. So we will help you as well with the financial analysis, with the financial projections. And there is also the thing about our life cycle tends to be longer than other investors because we are patient investors, because we understand that the cycle of development of drugs is long. So we normally can wait until the exit. And we can, in fact, this is another point, normally we invest an amount as initial investment, but we normally reserve for follow-ons to keep on supporting the company during the next steps. So I think that's also relevant as well.
That's super clear. Thank you. Now that for the ones that are joining now lately, now we are going to go through a topic lecture from Laura Rodriguez. She has prepared a super lecture for all of us. So thank you so much for taking your time, Laura, really. And this topic is about how does a VC fund work? This is the topic of today. And well, I'm not going to spoil all the subjects, so the floor is yours. Thank you, Laura.
Perfect. Thank you. So I didn't mention, but I was also part of the ETHEAD alumni. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. Yeah, the pleasure is from us. Yes, thank you.
Perfect. So here it's the presentation. Can you see it? Yeah. Perfect. So these are the topics that we are going to discuss today. And first of all, it's what a venture capital is. So venture capital funds are financial instruments that manage the money of private and public investors. So there is a period in our life cycle that it's called fundraising period, where we try to gather investments from different types of investors. They can be pension funds, banks, government entities, pharma or insurance companies, family offices, or high net worth individuals. Once we get their commitments, we do what it's called the closing of the fund with X millions of euros. So the management company will get a management fee precisely to perform activities. And these activities are mainly investments. We will do investments in companies, normally are small to medium-sized companies, which are high risk, high return opportunities. And we invest this money in exchange of equity. And apart from equity, we normally get a board seat. It means that we will participate at the board of directors in strategic decisions. What our goal is we want the company to advance, to reach certain milestones in order to increase the value, because and our final goal is to exit in certain years with having multiplied our investment. Why? Because what we need to do is to return this investment to our initial investors, normally with a multiple. If the fund performs well, we have what is called a threshold of a multiple, in which the management company will have also a carried interest. What this means? It means that once the profit reaches a threshold, the management company will also receive part of the profits, and that is something that you agree with your investors. And it works like a performance fee, because the management company will only have this fee if it performs well. So Perfect. In terms of life cycle, for the life science, what it's more normal, it's to have an investment period of 5 years where we do new investments, and then an investment period where we don't do new investments, but we normally do follow-ons in our portfolio companies up until the exit comes. And the exit can be done through an M&A, which is an merger and acquisition by a bigger pharma company, going public through an IPO, or licensing the assets of the company. So that's what venture capital is. And these are the two examples. These are our funds. Health Equity was our first fund. It was created back in 2012 by Luis and Albert. We'll explain later. They are the partners. And this is fully invested. So this company has 5 companies in portfolio. One of them was sold recently. And then we are in the investment period. So we don't do new investments. Back in 2018, we started fundraising, and we closed a second fund called Invivo Ventures with 60 million euros under management. This fund is now actively in fundraising. We've invested in 6 companies and are looking for additional opportunities. Here I put some logos of some of the investors that participated in Invivo Ventures. These are the public ones, and then we have also private ones. And one of them, the European Investment Fund, is the anchor investor. Perfect. So here, it's the process of our day-to-day activities, okay? And I will go through the process. So first of all, one of the main important things is deal flow reception. So we have a strong network, and this is a network that is composed of different stakeholders. For example, in our case, we do have a very strong relationship with technology transfer offices from universities, research centers, hospitals around Spain, and now we are building the network as well in Europe. We are also as well have a lot of interactions with other venture capitals. We are very active, for example, going to partnering events to meet new companies, but also to meet new VCs, because the deal flow can come directly from them as well. And we are also very active in participating in accelerators and incubators. So we participate as jury, mentor, evaluators, because all of this is deal flow that we receive, new projects. And in fact, we normally receive around 500 projects per year. So the first thing that we need to do is a preliminary analysis, because we need to discard as soon as possible. There is a huge amount of deal flow, and we need to decide what's in the scope and what it's not. With the companies that might be in the scope, we conduct a first meeting. We review first the non-confidential information, and then we organize a first meeting. And I will tell you a little bit about what we look for in a first meeting. First of all, one of the most important things for us is the team. So the team needs to have a vision for the company, but also skin in the game. We need commitment from the team. Also, of course, the CEO needs to have very good communication skills, because they need to convince other VCs as well in the future to invest in a company, and they need to have experience. But of course, this is not a soloist. So, we need a team that is strong. So you need to look for additional members that have complementary skills. That's for one. Then the second thing that it's for us important in a first meeting is, what is the problem? And if it solves a big problem, and big doesn't mean that the market needs to be huge. Market, for example, we invest in orphan diseases. That is not a problem. But the thing is that there is a big need in terms of, for example, that there is no solution, or the solution that it's there, it's not good enough. So we need to understand the medical need, the disease, what is the standard of care, why you are better than the standard of care. And you need to know very well which are your competitors and what's your unique selling point. Also, something that we evaluate in this first meeting is if you are a platform-based company or an asset-based company, because we need to understand if this is going to be an exclusively one product, or there are different pipeline extensions, because this also the risks the investment. And last but not least, for us, the most important thing is the science. So we want to see a solid proof of concept. What does it mean? For example, in drug development, what we would like to see, because we are early stage investors, it's important to mention, we would like to see preclinical validation in a relevant animal model and using relevant endpoints. And preferably, we would like it to see compared to the standard of care, because you need to demonstrate that you are better than the standard of care. Then, if it's IBD, for example, we would like to see data on patient samples. And if you are, for example, a digital health project, we would like to see clinical evidence because we are science-driven. What we don't want to see and what we call the killer slide is precisely when we see that there is no advantage. So your product doesn't offer any advantage over what is already in the market or what is the standard of care, and when you are not disruptive. So you are a me better, for example. So then it comes the decision to discard completely, to put on hold. On hold means that maybe the project is interesting, but it lacks some data that we would like to see. So we would tell the project to come back later when they have the data, or we decide to study. And to study is to dedicate a lot of resources in due diligence. Therefore, this decision is relevant. And for this decision, there are two things that we need to take into account: our scope and our portfolio as well. For instance, I will put our example, okay? So for example, in our case, we are early stage investors. Therefore, we are going to look for projects in that stage precisely. Ideally, where there is a technology transfer from a research center, where the science is robust and the scientists are also very good. In our case, we normally invest 1 to 2 million euros and can go up to 6 million euros. We invest mostly in Spain, but can invest also in Europe, and we can invest across sectors. And that's on our webpage. I mean, whenever you decide to talk with a VC, you need to know who you are talking to. So you need to look at their webpage and you need to look at their portfolio companies, because there you will find the investment scope, but also what they really like. For example, in our case, right now we have 4 portfolio companies. These portfolio companies, if you take a look, all of them are in the advanced therapy space. We have gene therapy, cell therapy, RNA therapy, synthetic biology, gene editing. So if you have this type of project, it's likely that we like it. But if you have, for example, a me better, it's low. The likelihood that we will study the project is very low. So you really need to go to the VCs that can fit your project. And also in terms of ticket, for example, if you are looking for a 30 million ticket, of course, we are not going to be the lead investor. You need to go for a bigger one. But if you want to do a smaller round to increase the value of the company, maybe we are the right ones. But that is something that you really need to work on before you meet the investor. You need to understand their thesis. Perfect. So whenever we decide that we are going to study a project because it fits both our scope and their portfolio strategy, we conduct a due diligence. That is, on the one hand, it's a technical due diligence where we do a deep dive on the science. And of course, we also look for help of key opinion leaders, for example, in the medical indication or in the technology and the modality. But also we outsource some of the due diligence, for example, IP due diligence to IP attorneys in order to review if the patent is robust, it has likelihood of getting granted, and if there are future patents and there is a patent strategy in place. Also, we can do a legal due diligence to understand the legal situation of the company, and a financial one if the company is previously incorporated. If everything is clean, then we will sign a term sheet and proceed with the investment. Once we decide to invest, of course, there is a lot of negotiation. We need to negotiate the shareholders and the investment agreement, all the agreements required for the activities of the company. For example, as we do company creation, we normally help with the negotiation of the technology transfer agreement, the R&D agreement with the research institution where the science comes from, etc. And with our investment, we will have probably, and most of the VCs normally ask for it, a board seat at the board of directors. We will then take part of the management of the company. We will participate at the board level, but also in our case, we are very hands-on. So it's a constant relationship with the CEO, and we help in every way that we can. And finally, of course, our final goal is to exit, as I mentioned, through an M&A, an IPO, or a licensing agreement to get a return on investment. Perfect. And that's the last slide. That's an example of our team. But of course, every fund has their own structure, but that is, I will explain the tasks of each one as an example. For example, we have Luis Pereira and Albert Ferrer as partners of the fund. So they founded both Health Equity and Invivo, and they take part of the fundraising activities mainly, and they make the final decision in terms of investment, and will also participate at the board level of the portfolio companies. Of course, we have an executive assistant, and then me as a principal, I do as well portfolio management. So I'm in contact with the portfolio companies and helping whatever they need. I also participate at the board level, either as an observer or as a board member, for example, in one of our portfolio companies in one chain. And also I coordinate the analysis of the team. As the analyst team, we have Gemma and Marta. Gemma and Marta have a scientific background, and they do from deal flow management to investment analysis to the investment committee. So they do all the activities. Oscar Ferrer helps with the financial analysis and also takes care of compliance, controlling, etc., with the help of Laura. But of course, as I mentioned, every fund has its own structure. Also, depending on the size of the fund, they have more capability to grow. And also, as I've linked to you, normally when a new fund is created, there are new job opportunities to enter into this space. Of course, it's a difficult space because the teams are small, but there are new opportunities coming. And well, that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. I take your last blink.
Yeah.
So Pedro, if you want to take the lead, please. Pedro is not here, maybe.
Yeah.
Well,
Gonzalo,
are you there, Pedro? Or I will take it.
You.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Laura, for your lecture. It was impressive, and at least I learned a lot how a VC works. And now it's time for the Q&A. So we have a few questions for you. And the first one is from Sandro Costa of Peer Care. And how much time does it take to go from the first contact to the investment?
That's a great question. So it depends on how long the due diligence takes. So sometimes it takes 3 months, sometimes it might take a year. For example, we do a lot of company creation. So sometimes the process, for example, with research institutions to create the company, to get approval from their board of trustees through the negotiation, it takes longer, but normally it's months. I would say it's months. It could be a mean of 6, but it depends because sometimes, for example, during the due diligence, you find things that you need to fix before you invest, for example, at the IP level, and this usually takes longer as well. So it depends.
Okay, but well, more or less you can have
Yeah,
the time
at
in your
least
hand.
6 months. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So another question from Van and Nguyen. How much is the rate a VC would like to get after the investment compared to the initial funding to the company?
That's a very good question, and it depends, because the thing is that we invest in, for example, 10 companies, but we also take into account that some of the companies won't work because, for example, the science won't work. So there will be an attrition ratio, it's called. And then the others should compensate for the ones that won't end up well, let's say. So we expect a multiple, and it depends, because it is something that you normally negotiate with your LPs, but also let's say that we expect the bigger the better. It's like that.
Okay, and I have two questions regarding that, because what does LP mean first?
Yeah, limited partners. Sorry, these are the investors that invest in the fund.
Okay, cool. And regarding that, you mentioned in your lecture that there was like an exit of a company in your health equity fund. Can you share with us what is the name of the company?
Yeah, of course. That was Sanifit. That was a company that we invested back in 2014, and it was sold in December last year, 2021, already with data from phase 3. So it was a very advanced company, and it was sold to B4 Pharma, which is a public Swiss company.
It was the biggest exit in Catalonia, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was. And the amount is not fully disclosed, because the thing is that these numbers are always sensitive, either for one company or for the other. So they not always, but they don't really like sharing all the details. But it was a very, very good exit. Yeah, for all the investors.
Good to hear.
Yeah, that. And also very good one for the local ones, because there were several local investors involved. So I think it's a good thing for Catalonia and for Spain, because it gives us a lot of visibility.
Good to hear that. So congrats.
And I have two questions after Gonzalo.
Go ahead, Pedro.
Yes, it's two related questions, Laura. That is about the general challenge for venture capital. What is your biggest challenge nowadays for a venture capital? And what are the challenges that will face venture capital in the future, in the upcoming years?
That's a very good question. So I think it's getting very competitive. There has been a lot of company creation and a lot of IPOs at the preclinical stage. So it is difficult for us to find the best company to invest in. And this is a very relevant question, because we invest in the ones that don't work. It's a write-off for us. So it is difficult to assess the competitive landscape, because it's very, very crowded. So that's why, for example, that we really like cutting edge technologies, because they break the rules and they create new opportunities. So that way we really like all what it's as most innovative as possible. And the biggest challenge in the future, that's I would say the same, because it's going to be even more competitive. There is a lot of liquidity, even though the public market is not working very well, but there is liquidity, and there are a lot of VCs with bigger funds and with bigger tickets that need to deploy the tickets. So we think that there is going to be a lot of activity in terms of investments. The key challenge is get acquired at a proper valuation to get a proper return of investment.
Okay. I mean, I will have time, Gonzalo, for another one, or there is more.
Do you want me to ask, Pedro, or do you want to ask the next one?
You.
Okay. So I have a few more if the audience is not adding more questions. If you let's see, and if you can tell us the 3 major problems you could address if tomorrow you change your mind and you were a startup founder?
Wow, that's a very good one. I would say, on the one hand, we really think that the CNS is an area that's been underexplored because it's been very, very challenging, but it's going to be a very interesting area to invest in, and the deal activity has increased quite a lot. What else? Well, because of my experience as well, I really like the CAR-T space. And I think that the next step is not only going to allogenic CAR-Ts, but to do in vivo CAR-Ts. And there are already some papers, well, and some companies doing that using RNA. So CNS, RNA, and well, synthetic biology as well. It's going to be very interesting, the evolution of synthetic biology, for example, the use of live biotherapeutics that you can attune depending on the conditions of for example, the organism. It's well, they're very interesting areas. Yeah.
And regarding that, because we have a question from Francesco, that is, what areas do you invest? I mean, more in biotech, in medtech, in e-health, or it depends on the project? So maybe you have like 3 star projects in e-health and you invest all the money on them. Can you explain us?
No, in principle, when we started the fund, we decided that we would invest in any type of investment, biotech, medtech, and digital. But as we've got a lot of deal flow, etc., we finally only invested in biotech. Also, our main expertise in the team is drug development, so it makes a lot of sense. And also, we really like cutting-edge technologies and its application in terms of drug development. So I don't know what's going to happen with the next funds because we're still deciding. But for now, in Invivo, we are only focused on drug development companies.
Okay.
Yeah, Gonzalo, I jump in because it's in the same, topic. I wanted to ask you, Laura, when do you expect to raise your next fund, more or less? And yeah, what are your thoughts?
That's a good question as well. So we still have a couple investments left from this fund that we can do either this year or next year, because the life cycle, it's 5 years of investment. But we would like them to do, and we would like to do them this year and start fundraising afterwards. That would be the idea, but let's see how it goes. You only know when you start fundraising, not when you finish. Yeah.
Good.
A good one.
Well, I'm taking also the questions from the YouTube channel where people are also asking questions. And also I have a few of them. Well, a question from Cristina Braga. Is a team of 2 people small for an early stage investment? What if the team acknowledge the profiles they miss the most?
For us, it's not small, but because we are early stage investors, it will all depend on who you are talking to. So in our case, we've built the team in our companies, in some of our companies. So what we really need is a scientific founder that is willing to commit some time. Sometimes it doesn't need to be the CEO. Maybe it can be a part-time CSO. And then we can even look for a CEO. We've incorporated several professional CEOs in our companies, and this has worked pretty well. So we are not afraid of that, but we really need commitment from the founders, and then we will help with the building of the team.
Okay, cool. And regarding that, because you mentioned that there is that you need like a solid proof of concept, and that you identify risk between platform or asset-based company. I mean, which of them has more risk on one hand, and on the other hand, if you see a really good company that has a lot of potential, would you help them to make a proof of concept in all the companies or institutions you are connected with?
Mm-hmm. So in terms of proof of concept, I mean, we invest very early and we have helped with the defining of the proof of concept. So we start meeting the teams very early on, and we give a lot of feedback in terms of what we would like to see. So that is something that they normally can do with non-dilutive funding, and then we will invest in the company. And then we, of course, we will do a lot more research and a lot more proof of concepts in general. And the other question was about asset-based versus platform-based. So we've invested in asset-based companies and they are performing very well, but it's we normally get the feedback from VCs, from bigger VCs, that at the end, asset-based is more risky because you only have one product. And if this product fails, then you have nothing. So during the years, we have evolved and we really appreciate platform-based companies. And also because there are some key discoveries during the last years, for example, CRISPR, that has allowed to increase these platform possibilities. So right now, we really like platform-based companies, but of course, with these platforms, we would like to see at least one proof of concept with the first product. Then we will invest to improve the platform, to optimize it, and to generate more candidates.
Understood. And there is another continued question from Van Guyen. Is there any possibility that ABC tries to push an early stage company for an exit? A lot of companies after IPO, their values went down because they are still far away from clinical trials.
Yeah. Well, in our case, it's not our business model, but I can talk from other VCs, but in our case, we are patient investors. And what we want is to increase the value of the company with the accomplishing milestones and advancing in the development. It is true that during 2020, 2021, there was an IPO window. So a lot of preclinical stage, but also clinical stage companies went to the public market because there was a lot of money. The thing is that, well, it's reported that during the COVID crisis, a lot of non-healthcare investors started to invest in biotech. So there was a flow of money and a lot of companies went public. What was the problem? That now that the macroeconomic situation is not very good and there is a lot of inflation, these non-healthcare VCs or non-healthcare hedge funds, etc., they are going to, they are divesting from that and investing in more conventional assets and more safe assets. So that's why, or that's partially why there is this decrease. But it seems and I would recommend you to read Bruce Booth on Twitter, because he's a partner. I think it's there. Let me look. At Atlas Ventures, and he writes a post, several posts, and what he says is that there is this decrease in IPOs, in valuations. It's in all innovative sectors, so both biotech and medtech. It seems that it's more about the macroeconomic situation than the industry itself. Yeah.
And well, we have a question regarding to that, because at the end, this is a challenge that agnostic VC put money in healthcare project. So what are the challenges that will face VC in the coming years?
Yeah, that may be, I mean, first of all, let's see if the public market recovers, because of course for it's an exit strategy. And another thing is what I previously commented about the competitive landscape and getting acquired. So pharma companies are flooded with new projects and with new opportunities, and they need to decide with which one they invest money in and buy the company. So it's going to be challenging the competitive landscape if the public market is still down, but let's hope that it improves.
Okay, and we have another question from YouTube from Miguel Sureda. How difficult is to find investors for creating your venture capital? Who is responsible in the team to do this job?
The fundraising, right? So normally it's the partners that do the fundraising. It's challenging. Normally the first funds depend more on public money. For example, there are several institutions, the Institute, ICF, the Catalan Financial Institute, the Valencian Financial Institute, the ICO, which is from Spain, the EIF. There are several institutional investors that help and they normally take a relevant part in the first funds. And then there is the capability to raise from private investors. And when you have more track record, of course, then it will be easier to convince other investors and other private investors to jump into the VC fund. But it's challenging for sure.
Okay, and you mentioned that in your second phase, in the preliminary analysis, you want to discard the project as soon as possible. And could you provide some advices to the audience in order to go to the next step? I mean, because you talk about the team, the commitment of the team, and the good communication skill of the CEO. What another advice would you give to the audience in order to go further?
As I mentioned, the discard process needs to be quick because we receive a lot of deal flow. So we need to be very stringent in our criteria. It is even difficult sometimes to get a first meeting, but we try to do it because we also, we try to also provide feedback. So sometimes the project is not ready, but we will give you the feedback for you to be ready later on. But the key steps for, another advice is, as I mentioned as well, it's look to the investor that fits with your company. Because if you try to convince us to invest, for example, in a Me Better, it's going to be discarded straight away because it's not our strategy and it's clear. But there are other VCs that invest in that because it has less risk, of course. So you need to really know your audience. You really need to know which VCs do you have more likelihood to get to the next step, because you need to have a win-win scenario as well with the VC and an understanding.
And regarding that, because you mentioned that maybe some companies are not for you because they want to raise more money than you offer. And could you recommend that companies, bigger VCs, to go for them and maybe later you join, or do you have like group of VCs that can work together? Because for instance, if you only give 1 million euros and I need 100, what would you do for my startup?
So basically, VCs in general try to co-invest because that's another way to the risk, because you are going with another VC that puts money and also experience on the table. So it's not that we won't invest in a 30 million route, because we would love to. The thing is that our contribution is not going to be the key contribution. The key contribution is going to be the lead investor. So you will need to find a lead investor that will set up the terms, and then we can participate in the syndicate. And in that sense, we can help, of course, because with Health Equity and also with Invivo, we've co-invested with different VCs from Europe. with the big ones and with not the big ones. So we have the contacts, and whenever we find a project that we like and it's looking for a bigger round, we can talk with VCs to try to build a syndicate. And it's something that in our two last investments, we have co-invested with different VCs because that company required more money. So it's something that we do. Yeah, completely. And all VCs do. Yeah.
Good to hear that.
I have a
So
question, Gonzalo.
go, because I wanted to say that it's all from my side, from my question. So if Adri or Pedro wants to jump in.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Laura, related with your portfolio, yeah, I saw that almost all the startup was with a huge scientific background, right? So what is easier?
We lost him.
Yeah, I think so.
I think we lost him.
I didn't hear the last
Part.
sentence.
Me neither.
Well, then it should be the destiny to finish the Q&A, because, well, the thing is that after the Q&A, Krishna from EIT Health Alumni is going to share with us some information. So from our side, Laura, thank you very much for your time, for preparing the lecture, for showing us how your VC fund works. It was lovely, and also thanks to the audience to be here, to the questions, and even later in YouTube or in other channels you can watch again these episodes. And the next one is gonna be the fourth one and the latest one, and it's gonna be the 19th of April at 5 p.m. and it's gonna be Maria Poveda from Invivo Ready, who is going to talk about is VC financing right for my startup, and how to identify a VC investable company and making the VC decision. So thank you, Laura, again, and Krishna, the floor is yours to share with us the EIT Health alumni announcements.
Thank you.
Everyone. Thank you, Laura, for the wonderful session, and it was just such an informative session, and especially with the Q&As. I think people loved it and people got to know a lot more information. So thank you very much for taking the time out. And Gonzalo, Adrià, Pedro, as usual, fabulous job once again, and helping the healthcare innovators around Europe understand more about the VC world, about entrepreneurship, investment, and funding. Great job. Great. A round of applause to all of you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you, Laura.
Webinar. Before you shut down your tab or close this webinar, I have an important announcement to make. So as this webinar is organized by EIT Health alumni with a mission to empower innovators such as you in the space of healthcare. And as part of this mission, we are organizing a visit to Medical Valley Erlangen. Yes, a Medical Valley is, as you're aware, is one of the most leading incubation center, leading innovation ecosystem in healthcare transformation in Europe. So let me share my screen to give a bit more information about it. So we are organizing a one-day visit where you will be visiting the Medical Valley. You'll be talking to the experts over there, to the investors, to the incubator professionals, to directors and leading members of the Medical Valley system. And as part of this visit, EIT Health alumni will sponsor 10 participants to visit the Medical Valley in Erlangen. Yes, that's right. EIT Health alumni will be sponsoring your travel for 10 people, 10 selected people for this visit. So we invite you to take advantage of this opportunity and to go and register yourself. The event will be held on 1st of April and the details The link to it is added in the chats. But apart from that, so as you're aware, yet Health to me, we try to bring innovative webinars and workshops and trainings and everything to you. And this is all possible because you have reached out to us. You have your feedback has enabled us to understand what is that you need and to bring you speakers that you would be interested in. So we would be very grateful for you if you could spare 2 minutes and give us your valuable feedback. This would be very much appreciated, and this feedback goes a long way in helping us plan much more informative, much more better events in the coming time. Thank you once again, everyone, for your time. Thank you, Gonzalo, Laura, Adrià, Pedro, and wish you all a wonderful evening. And to all the attendees out there attending us from different parts of the world, have a lovely afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.